Is it crazy to pay a contractor just to walk properties with you? How can you build trust with a contractor if you're doing your first renovation? And what can you do if your contractor is working so slow and it's costing you money every day? Today, I'm answering all these questions and more. Hi, everyone. I'm Henry Washington, guest hosting the BiggerPockets YouTube channel today in place of Dave Meyer. I've flipped a lot of houses and I've renovated a ton of rental properties. So a large part of my business relies on finding contractors I can trust and structuring my deals with them so we're both working towards the same goals. A rehab that's completed, on budget, and as fast as possible with a high quality of work. I know a lot of new investors struggle with this part of the real estate business, so in this video, I'm going to answer a few of the most common contractor questions I see in the BiggerPockets forums. Hopefully this will help you see that the game-changing renovation you've been avoiding might actually be easier to manage than you think. Our first question is about walking properties with a contractor. But first, I want to let you know that today's show is sponsored by REsimpli. If you're in real estate like I am, and you don't want to lose deals juggling multiple tools, that's where REsimpli comes in. A true all-in-one CRM designed for real estate investors just like us. With REsimpli, you can connect with motivated sellers through calls, texts, emails, or direct mail, plus enjoy free skip tracing, cash buyer searches, customizable websites, and automated drip campaigns that turn cold leads into successful deals. Head over to REsimpli.com/BiggerPockets now to start your free trial and get 50% off your first month. Once again, that's REsimpli.com/BiggerPockets. All right, back to the show. Our first question about contractors comes from a BiggerPockets forum member named Joseph. And he wrote, I'm new to fix and flip investing. Should I be paying a contractor to walk properties with me before I make an offer? Or should I get the property under contract first and then get bids? I don't want to waste time or money bringing contractors to properties I might not even buy, but I also don't want to go into a deal blind and underestimate rehab costs. How do experienced investors handle this? This is a good question. A lot of people have this question. So at first I'll say the political answer is it depends. It depends on what your strategy is on how you're making these offers. So in other words, if you are doing a strategy where you're making lots of offers on-market deals that may have been sitting on the market for a while, and so maybe you're just making offers at, 30, 40, 50% off of what they're listed at, then you shouldn't be looking at any of these before you make an offer, because really what you're trying to do is make offers well under what's being asked to try to land a good deal. And then if someone counters your offer or accepts your offer, then you get out there and you look at the property with a contractor and walk it and get an accurate rehab bid. But if you are just making onesie twosie offers, meaning you've got it narrowed down to a few properties that you're interested in and you're only making offers on those few properties, then really I would say it's up to you. The cool part about making offers on the market is you're going to have an inspection period. And in that inspection period, you can go in and really hone your numbers. And so I think it is okay to have a ballpark on what you think your rehab might cost based on the pictures or the information that you've received from the agent. And then if you get an offer accepted, you can walk it with a contractor. And I think that that's a safer way to go and not wasting a contractor's time, because now you have that conversation with the contractor to say, hey, I've got this under contract. I need to walk it and make sure that the bid that I think is the actual bid that we will need. And that's not going to hurt your credibility much with a contractor. I think if you are walking properties with contractors before you have them under contract, if you do that too many times, it could damage your relationship with that contractor if you don't have a history of closing or doing deals before. And so I would say the best thing to do is to figure out a way to estimate your rehab costs. And you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be in the ballpark. So maybe you use a cost per square foot method. We've talked about methods like this on the channel before, but maybe use a range of, $15 to $20 or $25 for a light remodel, $20 to $35 for a mid-tier remodel, and maybe $35 to $55 or more for a total rehab, like a gut renovation. And obviously those numbers need to change depending on your market, but you can use a sliding scale like that to help you get in the ballpark and make your offer. And then if your offer is accepted or countered, then you can get in there with contractors and you'll have a whole lot more credibility when you say, hey, I've got this under contract. I need an accurate bid for the renovation. The other part of the question is, says, do you have go-to contractors who will walk properties for free in exchange for future work, or do you pay them upfront for your time? Some people will be able to get contractors to walk jobs for free, and they'll typically do that because they understand that if they write you a bid, they're in contention for getting that bid awarded to them for the job. Now, if you just have a contractor do this over and over again and not ever award them a job, then it's going to be hard to get them to want to continue to do these for free. Most contractors I find are willing to walk jobs for free in order to give you a bid. But like I said, there's going to be a limit on how much they will be willing to do that. I have also worked with contractors who wanted me to pay them for their time and for a bid. I would say this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I like the idea of paying a contractor for their time to give you a bid. Because think about what that means. That means you're dealing with a contractor who, A, values their time, and because you've paid them for their time and paid them to give you a bid, you're now probably going to get a much more detailed bid and get it in a timely manner. A lot of the difficulties I found with contractors in these beginning stages is you may get them to show up and walk a property, but sometimes you're chasing them for weeks or sometimes even a month for them to turn around and get you a bid because it's all work they're doing for free. When you pay somebody for their time, what they're telling you is, my time is valuable. I want to give you an accurate bid, and I want to give you a bid in a timely manner. In exchange for that, I want you to pay me for that time. If you're going to give somebody a job, maybe it's a $40,000, $50,000 renovation. Like, who would you rather award your $50,000 renovation to? The guy who showed up, walked the property, didn't take a ton of pictures, and then gives you a generic bid after a couple of weeks? Or the guy who charged you for his time, showed up, took detailed notes, detailed pictures, turned around an accurate bid for you in a few days so that you can make a better decision about buying that property or not? Every time I've paid for a bid and then used that contractor, I've had a good experience. And so I don't think there's a problem with paying for bids. So the answer to this question is you can do both, but I wouldn't shy away from paying a contractor for their time, especially if they're asking you to pay for their time, because that shows a lot of professionalism to me. So another question to think about is, how can you build relationships with contractors before you have renovation experience? And that is a tough thing to do. Most good contractors are busy. And so if you're going to get some of their time, you want to make sure that you are a credible resource to them. So part of the ways you can do that is by having them bid properties you have under contract. It's hard to get a contractor to bid a hypothetical job. So a lot of the times what investors want to do is they want to talk to certain contractors before they really get a deal to understand what a rehab might cost. But when you're speaking in hypotheticals, it's hard for a contractor to give you anything accurate, and they don't know you from Adam. So they don't know if you're actually going to do the things that you're saying you're going to do. So they may struggle to want to give you the time of day in order to do that. But when you have a deal under contract, you have something tangible that they can go bid. That always helps build credibility, because now they're bidding an actual job. You've already proven that you're willing to go out, make offers, and get things under contract. You've proven that you're trying to do a deal. And then being as honest and transparent about the bid process as possible is always good. Like, I tell a contractor if I'm getting multiple bids. So I might have them come bid a job, and I might tell them about the job and say, hey, look, I'm getting about 2 or 3 bids on this, and then I'm going to make a decision. Because what that does is it creates some sense of urgency, and it creates some sense of competition. You want them to give you the best bid that they can if they want the job. I've found that if I have contractors who know that I'm getting multiple bids, they're either going to give me a good bid and compete for the job, or they're not going to compete for the job because they don't want to. And if they don't want to, that means they're either too busy to want to compete for jobs. And if they're too busy, then I may not want to give them the job anyway, because I don't want them having to split a bunch of time to get my job done. So creating that sense of urgency and competition will sometimes help kind of shine a light on who the contractor is that you should go with before you even get a bid. So that was our first question, or questions. Our second question is one related. It's about what to do when you already have a contractor, but your renovation isn't going according to plan. For the record, this will happen to you. It happens to every real estate investor. So this question comes from Elizabeth in Carlsbad, California. She posted, "We are in the end stages of our first flip. Our contractor has been insanely slow with minimal progress from week to week. We should be listed at this point, but we have at least another 2 weeks of work left. We live an hour and a half away from the property, so I can't be there every day micromanaging the contractor. I visited the site today and it was more of the same. So I immediately reached out to the GC with photos asking how they can claim we will be done in a week when they clearly aren't close. We have a small payment left on the contract, which I am withholding until completion. Any recommendations to light a fire under them to finish the job?" So this is a situation that you probably will find yourself in. I find myself in this situation from time to time as well. This is why it's very important to have a good contract between you and your contractor. And that contract needs to outline what work is going to be done, how much that work is going to cost, when you will pay them for that work, and how long it's supposed to take to do that work. All of these things should be spelled out in the contract. And when you have a signed contract by both parties, it then gives you something that you can do when these situations come up, because now you can hold them legally accountable to what they agreed to do. If there's no contract in place, you technically don't have any legal way to hold them accountable to anything because you guys never agreed to anything up front. You really put yourself in a difficult position because now all you can do is what you're doing, which is withholding some payment in order to get them to want to show up and do the work faster. The problem with that is, since there is no contract, there's nothing stopping the contractor from saying, well, I'm going to put a lien against this property since you're not paying me for work that I feel like has been done already. And it's really just your word against theirs. And it's very easy in almost every state for a contractor to just put a contractor's lien against your property. And now you can't sell that property until that lien is cleared up. So you can really be in a tough spot like this if you don't have a contract. So I know that doesn't help this person in this situation because they're already at a certain point, but I'm saying this for everybody else listening so that you understand why it's so important to have a signed contract with you and your contractor. They don't have to be super detailed, but the more detailed, the better. What I like to do in these situations is I take the scope of work. So when you're going to bid a job, you should have a scope of work. The scope of work should just say, this is all the work that we want to do on this project. And then we like to break that scope of work down into phases. Typically 3 phases, could be more depending on how extensive your job is. But you break it down into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, right? What you do is most contractors typically need some money to get started to go buy materials. So either you can give them a percentage of the money to go buy materials, or you can buy the materials yourself at first and then give them the materials to get started. And typically the way my contracts work is they say, this is phase 1. I'm giving you X amount of money to get started. You will not receive another payment until phase 1 is complete. And then we have a date set to when that phase 1 is supposed to be complete by. After they complete phase 1, they tell me I'll go walk the job. We'll literally cross off every item. If every item is done and done to the satisfaction, then we pay them for phase 1, and then they can use that money to start phase 2. And then we repeat that process until the job is finished. We don't give them the final payment until everything is done and signed off on. So that's typically the way I found that has the most success when you're renovating a property and you need to track what's going on. For Elizabeth here, what I would recommend is what you're doing. If there's any money to be paid left, you have to hold that money out until they finish the job. And what I would do is I would go to the job, meet the contractor at the job and say, hey, let's just do a checkpoint of where we're at and let's see what you have done. So I would take your scope of work and I would show up and I would literally say, okay, these are all the things that have been done. These are all the things that are not done yet. You're saying you're going to be done in a week. So you're very clear between you and the contractor on what exact amount of work is left. And you are very clear with the contractor about how much money is left to pay for that work. Because what you want to understand is, are we going to meet the budget? If you've only got $5,000 left, but there's $15,000 worth of work left, you don't want the contractor coming back at the end of the job and saying, well, I need an extra 10 grand. So you want to have that come to Jesus meeting now where you list out everything that has been done and you list out everything that is left, and we all clearly understand how much money is left. And we're saying, all right, I will not be paying you until all of this work is done. And you are telling me that we'll be able to finish this work within the allotted budget that's left. Because you don't just want to leave it up for grabs like it has been, and then come back at the end of the project and say, well, we went over, we need more money. And then now they're putting a lien on your property because you don't want to give them more money. So get everything down on paper and get clear about what's left and how much money is left and how long it's going to take now. Don't do it through emails. Meet the GC there. Have him walk it with you. You guys both want to be seeing the same things, take the same notes, and then sign off on that at the end if everybody agrees on the remaining timeline and how much money is left. And that way you at least have something that you can hold them accountable to if they don't get that done in the amount of time. A sub question here is it better to offer a bonus than increase your hold time? I don't know if it's better to offer a bonus than increase your hold time, but I think you should have bonuses and penalties in your contract. And if you can get a contractor to agree to the bonuses and the penalties, that's good. I don't think you can have penalties without bonuses. I don't think you'll get a contractor to sign off on a contract that has penalties if they don't finish on time or on budget without having some bonuses if they finish ahead of time. So I do like the idea of saying, hey, this is the baseline, this is the budget, this is the timeline. And what we like to do is I like to break it down to them because contractors don't understand what a property costs you every day that it goes over. So I like to break it down and say, all right, what I'm paying per month on this property. For every day I hold this property, it costs me $100, $200, $500, whatever that number is, right? And so I would say for every day beyond the scope timeline, you will have to be deducted or you will have to pay a penalty of, and it would typically cover my hold costs for that time frame. But if you finish the job ahead of time or ahead of schedule, we're willing to pay you a bonus of that amount. So that way, if they finish early, you add up the days they finish early, they get a bonus for that. If they finish late, they're covering your holding costs. That's typically a good way for you to have bonuses and penalties built in. Because if they have incentive to get done faster and they know they can get done faster, this will help them prioritize your job. Because if they're working multiple jobs, but they have some flexibility on the time frame of the other jobs, they're more inclined to shift resources to your jobs to finish your job faster because they're financially inclined to get paid sooner. All right, so hopefully these contractor tips will help you manage your jobs better, faster, and on budget and protect yourself as you're doing these renovations. Before we go, a reminder that these questions came from our investors in the BiggerPockets forums. So if you have real estate questions of your own, you can go to biggerpockets.com/forums and get advice from more than 3 million members totally for free. Thanks so much for watching today. And if you found this video helpful, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I'm Henry Washington. Dave Meyer will be back soon with another show. Thank you for watching.